Which songs will Iron Maiden perform on their upcoming Run For Your Lives tour is possibly one of the most discussed questions in the Iron Maiden fanbase right now.
Yep.
And as promised, I will release an episode with my predictions in just a couple of days. But today, let's talk about the songs which Iron Maiden will almost certainly not perform live next year. Which, in case of some of them, is a rather sad thing, as it might actually mean that we might never hear those songs live ever again. Here you go. When it comes to the band's debut album, pretty much every song from it has a chance to be performed live on Run For Your Lives tour. And in case of some of them, like for example Iron Maiden or Runnin' Free, it is pretty much confirmed that they will. And even more, following the death of the legendary Iron Maiden vocalist Paul Di'Anno, I think there is a very high chance the band might use Remember Tomorrow as a way to honor Paul. And thus the only song from Iron Maiden, which I think is almost 100% confirmed will not make it on the band's 2025 setlist, is the instrumental track Transylvania, which was last played live by the band over 30 years ago, and which, in all honesty, given the whole concept of this 50th anniversary tour, might be a bit of a stretch for the band to include in their upcoming setlist. And I guess pretty much the same can be said about the band's sophomore album, Killers, which, by the way, for the record, now that Somewhere in Time has finally been given justice, has become one of the most overlooked band's album from the 1980s era in the last couple of years. And even the title track from it has actually been performed live last time over 25 years ago.
It's just outrageous.
Yet, if you ask me, I think there are still a couple of songs which are almost 100% sure the band will not perform live. And those being Purgatory and Prodigal Son. As in case of the former, well, in all honesty, it might be a bit too complicated to perform live for Nico McBrain, given everything he's been through in the last couple of years. And in case of the latter, I can actually see it being included into the setlist only as a way to tribute the late Paul Di'Anno, which, if you think about it, there's still much better songs to do that with. Number of the Beast, despite the whole fact that it is possibly the most well-known Iron Maiden album, at least for wider audiences, still for many Iron Maiden fans is actually an album of highs and lows. It has some of the greatest songs Iron Maiden have ever written and some of the most divisive tracks in the band's catalog. And given the whole fact that this Run For Your Lives tour, unlike the Future Past tour, will not in any way be a tour of deep cuts, I guess there are at the very least 3 songs which we might say with 100% certainty the band will not perform during this run. Those, first of all, being The Prisoner, not really because it is a deep cut, but because Iron Maiden did perform it during the Future Past tour this year, which, by the way, was one of the most pleasant surprises for, you know, an old fan like myself. But in addition to those, I'm 100% sure we will not get to hear Invaders, simply because it is, in honesty, the weakest track on the Number of the Beast, and the song Gangland, which, as you most likely all know, I simply love, but which at the same time Steve Harris, we all know, has never really been a huge fan of. Run For Your Lives tour actually has all the chances to become a truly unique tour in the band's career. And not only because on it Iron Maiden are set to celebrate their 50th anniversary, but also because there is actually a pretty high chance that the band might not perform The Trooper live. Well, simply because it was one of the only big hits they played during the Future Past tour, and there are a lot of songs from Peace of Mind which the fans are craving to hear live. And overall, I just gotta say that while preparing the episode for which songs the band might perform live on the upcoming tour, it was the Peace of Mind album, which was the most difficult one, but at the same time the most fun one for me personally. And running a little bit ahead of myself here, I actually think that there is a convincing evidence that there is a high chance for us to finally hear Sun and Steel being performed live on the upcoming run. And as promised, I will talk about it in the prediction video, but for now I just have to point out that I think we can all agree that there is one song from Peace of Mind that might never actually be heard live by the fans. And it, of course, being the song about hunting dinosaurs in prehistoric times. By the way guys, here I just simply have to point out real quick that only around 30% of the people who watch my videos are actually subscribed to the Metal Pilgrim channel. So if you still haven't done so, and especially if this is not the first Up the Irons series video you're watching on the show, I would really appreciate it if you would consider doing it right now. Let's continue building this amazing heavy metal community together. Following up on the band's celebration of Powerslave's 40th anniversary, which happened this year, and given the whole fact that it was pretty much ignored during the Future Past tour whatsoever, I think there is a pretty high chance that we'll hear at least a couple of songs from Powerslave live next year, especially given the fact that the spot for a Grand Epic, which was held by Alexander the Great on the Future Past tour, is now open, allowing us to speculate that Rime of the Ancient Mariner might actually make it back into the setlist sometime next year. But at the same time, I'm almost 100% sure that we will not get to hear Lost for Words and Back in the Village live. And the reason, at least for the latter, being once again Nico McBrain's recent health issues, which might not really permit him to perform such a complicated and fast-paced track like Back in the Village is. And this, my friends, I'll be honest with you, is one of the saddest things about this video, because Back in the Village was only performed live twice by the band back in 1984, both times in Poland. And I know it's weird, but this has actually always been one of my favorite songs from Powerslave, and I actually think that it is absolute crime against humanity that we might never actually have a chance to hear it being played live by the band ever again. Over the course of the past 2 years, Iron Maiden fans have witnessed history as the band has finally started giving justice to its most overlooked 1980s album, Somewhere in Time, which also happens to be one of the most beloved Iron Maiden albums for pretty much all of the band's fans. Yet, given the Future Past tour pretty much concentrated on this record, we can assume that all 5 tracks that the band performed over the course of the past 2 years will not make it into the setlist one more time next year. Yet at the same time, they do have to play some songs from it, yet as much as I'd love it to not be true, I have a pretty strong feeling that it will not be The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. Which of course is rather sad, given it is actually one of my favorite songs from Somewhere in Time. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son is simply packed with bangers, with absolutely no clear outsiders. And thus, in all honesty, picking a song which the band might not perform from it is pretty much a shot in the dark. As in my opinion, pretty much every song from the band's 7th studio output has a pretty good chance to actually make it into the setlist. But if you would absolutely have me have a guess, I would say that most likely it would be Only the Good Die Young, as it is one of those songs that the band has never performed live before. And in addition to it, I think it's pretty much confirmed that we will not hear Can I Play With Madness. Well, you'll know why. It is no secret that, at least to me, No Prayer for the Dying is actually the weakest of the first 10 Iron Maiden albums. At least this is the record which I tend to go back to the least out of all of those. And this of course does not mean that it's a weak record as a whole, it just means that compared to the other Iron Maiden albums, it actually does not stand out as much. And yet still, it has some pretty amazing bangers, which I think, given the whole fact that the band has not really given them justice in the last couple of years, Iron Maiden will concentrate on next year. And thus I'm pretty sure that the fans will not hear neither The Assassin nor Hooks in You live in 2025, and there is also a very low chance that we will get to hear Fate's Warning or Run Silent, Run Deep. Once again, simply because there are so many songs for the band to choose from the first 10 albums, and they can only include just about 17 to 18 of those. And if you ask me, as much as I love deep cuts, these are definitely not the tracks the band should concentrate on during their 50th anniversary run. Fear of the Dark is one of the only Iron Maiden albums which the band has never ignored since its release all the way back 32 years ago. Although, in all fairness, pretty much all of the attention, of course, has been given only to its title track. And maybe that's why I simply would love to hear pretty much any song from it live, especially such tracks as Judas Be My Guide or Be Quick or Be Dead. Yet, unfortunately, and especially in the case of the latter one, I actually think that it is very unlikely. Simply because Be Quick or Be Dead is pretty much a speed thrash metal track, one of the only ones in the Iron Maiden discography, and thus it requires quite a physique just to be able to be performed live. Which, once again, because of Nico McBrain's recent health issues, I think will be very unlikely that the band will include in its setlist, as much as I would love to be wrong. And in addition, such tracks as Fear is the Key, Chains of Misery, Weekend Warrior and Childhood's End are also in my list of the very unlikely choices for Iron Maiden's inclusion into the next year's setlist, which in all honesty is simply a crime against humanity, as it is one of our only chances to finally be able to enjoy those amazing tracks live. But anyways, these are the songs that I think are very unlikely that we will get to hear live next year. And once again, I'd love to be wrong, as at least for me, being a huge Iron Maiden nerd, the deeper the cut, the better it is at pretty much any Iron Maiden show. But what about you? Which of these songs that I just mentioned would you absolutely love to hear live? Please let us know in the comments. And as promised, the actual setlist prediction is coming to you very soon. Thank you so much for watching this short video, guys, and we will prevail. Slava Ukraini!
Rock and roll!